The White House has said that there have been an alarming number of increasingly aggressive actions by the People's Liberation Army, that's China's military, in recent months. There was video of a near miss in the South China Sea in the air, and then one at sea in the Taiwan Strait recently as well. How unusual are these kind of incidents?
Well, they're not unprecedented, but it's unusual in terms of the quick succession of multiple incidents. I think China's sending a message, hey, we're in charge now. You're finished, to the West and to the United States. And I think it's indicative of what they hope to achieve, Margaret, which is to create kind of an exclusionary area of primacy across the Indo-Pacific region. They've laid claim to the ocean in the South China Sea, for example. So I think this really calls for us to have a strong response. I think, you know, with Secretary Blinken's visit there, it may portray a bit of weakness in terms of—
What do you mean?
Well, I think we've been so anxious to have this discussion with the Chinese, and the Chinese have been really playing hard to get in terms of the discussion. I think what they hope with the optics of this meeting, and I'm sure Secretary Blinken is quite aware of this, is to create a perception that we're going there to pay homage to the Chinese Communist Party, because they want to use that kind of perception of China's strength relative to the United States to bludgeon countries in the region and say, hey, time to bandwagon with us. This is our era, what they call the new era of international relations.
Well, arguably, a lot of the Biden administration policies look a lot like the Trump administration policies, at least directionally here. Relations have been going downhill for years now. This is the first visit since 2018. So if the visit itself, you question, is a risk, how do you make this successful?
Well, I think it's okay to talk, right? Diplomacy is okay. It's just the conditions under which the discussion is conducted and,
so what do you mean
and
by
how
that?
It's portrayed.
Location?
So I think not necessarily location, but just the atmosphere around it in connection with China really, I think, wanting to try to get some concessions in exchange for just the privilege of talking with them. And this might have to do with some policy decisions about whether or not to restrict or ask allies to restrict chip sales, for example, to Chinese industries. But I think what's really important to note is that China has not come off the path of aggression. You mentioned the People's Liberation Army aggression, but a broad range of economic aggression that China's engaged in. And so I think it's important just to stick to our guns on this. And it's important to have diplomacy with China, but let's have also diplomacy with countries that might be sitting on the fence to say, hey, your choice really at this moment is not between Washington and Beijing. It's between sovereignty and servitude.